Good morning. It's Monday, July 22nd, 2019, 9 a.m. This is the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is to review the agenda.
Vote to approve.
Second.
Have a motion by Santos, a second by Scott. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Item number 3 is to receive comments from the public. Is there anyone here wishing to address the board on an issue not on the agenda? If so, come to the podium, state your name and address and issue.
Hi, my name's Steve Brewster. I've been here before, just doing some background check on the Kid Cut Product Road. If there's going to be any updates, other than locking the road and leaving it like that. It has created a burden. I mean, there's a long way around on them other dirt roads. It has, Mr. Miller get to his property, he can't get to it. But my question is, who's paying for this as a taxpayer? And this was man-made by different people in that area. My person, Holiday and Lucas, has created this problem. Changing the water table, creating a pond, backing the water up, and Terry doing all the digging. So I'm just trying to find out what they're gonna do with the road. If they're gonna leave it like that, or they're gonna plan on reopening it. That's my question.
I don't think I have an answer for that right now.
I believe I think we sent the county engineer to look at that. And I think we were waiting to find back what the assessment was, and I think we had contacted the county attorney as well in regards to the damages that the neighbor had been doing.
Well, that's the question, is there any repercussions for them guys doing this? Or are they just a slap on the wrist, or get a permit?
Once-
But don't want a permit.
Once we hear back from the county attorney, if there is major damages, I think that's what we'll probably wait and see what they come back with us to be able to communicate that with you.
Okay. What, just like I said, I haven't seen any movement or anything in the last 2 weeks.
There was a letter that was mailed to him, so if he's still continuing to do the damage, I'd like for you to let us know that.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a cease or whatever letter sent, and I don't know if it also talked about putting it back. I don't recall. I did not see the letter that the county attorney sent, but typically, unfortunately, these processes take quite a bit of time because there's all kinds of notice
Right.
periods and all that, so I'll put on our list to follow up with the county
But I
attorney.
don't know if
And maybe Keith can, if he
Sign
has
one
any,
on
do you have any updates, Keith, on, do you know where anything's different, or you've heard anything back?
I don't think now's the perfect time to discuss it.
Yeah.
If you wanna make an agenda item, then we will.
Okay, yeah,
And if he is continuing to do, I'd like for you to let us know.
Well, I haven't seen him,
Okay.
other than, there were, after they put the gates up, he had went in and dug a lot of dirt that he had piled up, and how he got in there, I don't know, unless he went on the backside of his property to come through, but there was a big pile of dirt removed after they put the gates up. And I think there was a letter sent, from my understanding, to quit digging. But there, we need to move the signs if that's a possibility. I don't know who makes that decision. The signs are read at the,
I did discuss that.
oh, okay, because there's,
And they're moving them.
people can't read, apparently, they're bringing their trucks and their campers down through there, and it's really hard to turn around. And they're knocking these trash can stuff over, so the signs need to be moved on farther down the road.
Sounds like he's already got that addressed.
Okay, I didn't know he had talked to
Yep.
him. So, that's it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you started your statement, you talked about Mr. Holliday had done some earth moving and that, but you also stated there was another landowner that had done
Well, there's-
something?
We own probably a 5
The
acre.
first conversation was only one name is all that came forward.
Well, we own a 5 acre maybe pond that, on our property, and right on the other side, that used to be a little wet area. That the road run to the north, or the ditch run to the north, and drained into that. Was it 2 years ago? That, I think it's Buck's North property, or it's called, went in there and dug a wet area. I call it a pond. I'm taking 3 acres maybe, wide, I don't know exactly how deep, maybe 2.5 foot, 3 foot deep. Well, that changes the water table all through there. That backs the whole water back. And if it's full, if they don't keep that tube drained, it backs up to in the ditches. And when they do open that up, it washes our road out down below. And we've had, I don't know how many $1,000s we spent down there redoing that road. Probably to get to our back fields. I think he's changed the water table. I think he's holding water back. That's just my opinion, I don't know. But you can take a look at it. I think Eric went down and took a look at it one time. So I just thought that might be all combined together.
And that was done 2 years ago?
I believe it was.
That was a permitted project, and Mr. Lucas from Bucksville Property obtained a floodplain permit to belly out an existing lowland of just hold water during water foul season.
But it was a
So
permitted
that
project?
It was
After-
the height,
okay.
yeah.
Did he acquire the permit? He dug it first, then got the permit?
Yeah, there was a complaint that there was some earth moving activities, and so we contacted them and then verified the height, because it was ruled it wasn't allowed.
Okay.
It was just, so it was started, but he got the
Sure.
proper permits and it was approved.
That was just some new information for me that I didn't
Oh, okay.
hear earlier,
Yeah,
the first
I
time you
was
were here.
unaware.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
My name's John Miller. I have property borders Keokuk. And where the gates are now, got the road closed off. All my bottom ground down there is all on CRP. Well, at August 1st, I have to go in and maintain this. I go in and mow weeds and keep the trees down and spray and everything. I can't get to the field. They've got the road blocked off where I don't have access to the field, the south field. I can't go in from the other side. The gates are back so far that there's nothing that, I can't get to it. I also lease the ground for hunting to some guys, and he was down and talked to the guy that was down there with the excavator. And he said, "What are you doing?" "Well, we're thinking about closing this road." And he says, "Well, you know, I don't have any access, I can't get in here." And he says, "Well, how often do you come in here?" And he says, "During hunting season, every day." He says, "These gates will be locked." And he said, "Well, do we get a key to it, or?" "Well," he said, "we'll let the landowner have it." And he says, "That's it." I don't know who it was, I don't know anything other than, he told me, he says, "I'm not gonna come to your house every day and ask for a key to go down and unlock the gate so I can have access to it." Well, this August 1st is coming up. I have to get to it. I wanna know what I can do.
And who was the gentleman, or who did he represent that said that the road was gonna be closed and?
There was an excavator down there and he went down and talked to the operator. Is that a
It was a
county?
county employee?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Did they hire that excavator in there, or is that
No,
a?
it's probably a county employee, and I always wanna, encourage people, if you see county employees, the one that speaks for the roads is the county engineer, and not necessarily the operators. Sometimes they'll give you misinformation, or may not know the whole story, so.
He just asked him, how long it's gonna be before you get the tubes put back in, and he said, "Well, we ain't putting them back in." Oh, that's it. I brought up a concern that thought, somebody, I guess I need to talk to somebody about it, so.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, and, of course, this spring, with all the rain, water table's high down there. It's been bad. But, something that's gonna go, if they do decide to close this road, that they don't have access through there, that's gonna be a dumping area. People from town come out and go down a dead-end road and dump their junk. And that's what that'll end up being down in there. If they're not gonna maintain it, not gonna open it back up again, it's gonna be a problem. So, the water table is a lot higher this last year when I went down last fall. I mow around all the fields every year, and the water table is a lot higher because of the pond on the other side of the road. It's holding water back. So, and that's fine, as long as there's a, if they put in a pond, that's fine, as long as they've got a way to drain it. If they wanna fill it back up for duck season, fine, but you gotta be able to drain it, get it back down where, cause it's raised the water table in my place where there's lots of places I can't go anymore, so.
Mr. Miller, when you choose to start mowing, if we can't get access through that, I'd like for you to contact the county engineer to get you access to be able to mow your fields and your ditches. So right now, you said that you can't get back through there because of the gate.
Yeah, the gates are closed, it's way before the driveway. My gateway is down by where the tubes go across.
And what I'm requesting is if you could communicate that to the county engineer, what time, or hey, if I'm gonna be down there Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock or at 2, whatever time it may be, that way we can get you access through there if you still need to, until we help make that decision on what we come back with on Keokuk Road.
Okay.
That way you still have access.
Okay, all right, okay, very good. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Moving on to item number 4, discussion possible action to accept the county treasurer's semi-annual report for the period of January 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2019.
Move to approve.
A motion by Santos.
Second.
Second by Scott. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Item number 5 is discussion with Rebecca Allgood in regards to Muscatine County Freedom Rock Veterans Paver Project.
Good morning.
What have you been up to now, Becky? I think we
Well,
know.
we were lucky enough to get it. Ray Bubba Sorensen is the artist, and he is going into, in each county and painting a rock in honor of our veterans, and that's living and past veterans. So the Freedom Rock, we were lucky enough to get it. In Wilton, our Legion and Legion Auxiliary, found out about it right away and rushed a check, and so now Wilton has the Muscatine County Freedom Rock. It is in front of our historic depot in our historic downtown. This, we believe, will be about a $100,000 project. We have raised 50 so far, and as you can see, I know you received this in your packet, and that's a wall. That curved area is a wall, and that'll be in front of the depot, and the pavers will be around it. We talk about the paver project because we are selling pavers and for our veterans and put names on it. I was just over at the recorder's office trying to find out about my grandma's brother who passed away in the Spanish-American War. So I'm trying to get in my family all of the veterans that we have, right down to my son who was in the Air Force for 11 years. So this is a really neat project. If you go to Cedar County, they've got theirs dedicated already, and they do have their pavers, and they sold 680 pavers, but they cut it off. And now we're getting people from that county to ask us if we could put a paver there. Well, certainly we are going to honor all veterans, no matter where they're from and who they are. I do have
Rebecca,
pardon?
could you bring that over here somewhere where we can get the camera to look at that?
Oh, sure.
Someone maybe lay
There's
it
a
right
couple
there.
there and one here, so back, so there you go, that'd be great.
So at
Terrific.
least where we can have
Hi.
it, just so the public can see it.
Yes. And so we were just at the West Liberty, Muscatine County Fair in West Liberty, and they have their Veterans Memorial also. And so we're going to try to do something that we can all do together. But this is for Muscatine County. This is for all of Muscatine County. Our goal is to sell 1,000 pavers, and I'm hoping it's more than that. I think we can do that here in Muscatine County, certainly. I've got relatives all over that live in Muscatine, all over. Even, Cap Dorn, who was in the Civil War, he was actually the captain here in this regiment in Muscatine County in the Civil War. So I have a lot of pavers to purchase myself.
Now Becky, did they say, what are you selling a paver? What are you looking for a donation per paver? Is there a?
The pavers, if you get an extra large paver, and I can give you an example of that, we got one for my mom and my 2 aunts, who were all 3 in World War II. One of them was in the Marines and the Navy, and my mom was a cadet nurse. She was in the Cadet Nurse Corps. So we put at the top of it, Wacker Sisters, World War II. We listed their names now, and what they were in. And that was we got an extra large paver for that, so we could get those 4 lines. I do have, we have, if you get a large paver, which I got from my father, you can have 3 lines. And he was in World War II as a sergeant. And then I got a medium paver for my son, and that is 2 lines. So you can for $10 more, the 2 larger pavers, you can get 4 lines, get an extra line. It's all in here, it's all in this information. If you go to www.freedomrock.com, all that information for pavers is there. You can also call, and they put my phone number there, so they're gonna call me, which they have been doing. And we can get these sheets out to you, but certainly, I bet you there's, veterans all over in here. And,
What is
it's
the
a
cost?
really neat dedication.
What is the cost of it?
The cost, it looks like the small pavers are 50, the mediums are 100, the larges are 150, and the extra larges are 250.
I'm interested in purchasing a couple, so.
Yeah, if you go to Cedar County, it's just beautiful. Bubba Sorensen just does a beautiful job on these rocks.
We have Jennifer here from our Veterans Affairs office, if you want to send some of the information with her.
Oh, yes, who?
Jennifer.
Jennifer! Hi, Jennifer. Sure. Here,
So
Jennifer.
just
Take this.
to
It's
clarify
not
that there are pavers for the Veterans Project available. A minimum suggested donation would start at $50. You certainly could donate more. Because
yes,
we've got about a $50,000 to raise for this project
Right.
to do it nicely. Very good.
That is correct.
And when is this we're
2020.
underway?
We are actually, the city of Wilton has got to fix the sewer area that's there and, fix the road that's there to flatten it out. And, we want to lay it out in the fall, in the early spring, and then Bubba will be coming in next year, early spring, late spring, to paint it. You put a tent over this, and it's not a rock. It's a big boulder, if you've seen it in Wilton, it's huge. But we put a tent over it while he's painting it, and nobody can see it. And then we'll have a big dedication when he's done. We'll take the tent down, and it should be something special. But he does paint something that we have here in the county, so our history of the county and our veterans here. For example, Cedar County had President Hoover on theirs, plus I think John Brown on the other side of the paver. So just be thinking about that, because we have to give him those ideas. Okay?
Terrific.
Thank you.
Becky.
I'm gonna give you guys each a paver. Okay, thank you. Can I take that now? or-
Yes, you can, I just wanted to.
I'll leave it there for the team. Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, gentlemen.
Thank you, Becky.
Okay, next item on the agenda, items with the county engineer Keith White. Item A is discussion and possible action to approve various utility permits. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning. We have one permit today from Eastern Iowa Light and Power of Wilton, Iowa, to bore an electrical cable under Burlington Road at 2294 Burlington Road, serving the property on the other side of the road.
I'll move to approve.
Have a motion by Santos,
I'll second.
second by Scott. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. You have a projects update this morning, Keith?
Yeah, we have, Manats is, they've been doing some work up on Steel Mill Road, but they're back today to continue work up there, and Iowa is starting supposedly this morning at Wildcat Den, so that will be the first order in their paving, so they should be started on our paving projects from last year. Design-wise, we had the title sheet here for the bridge on 120th west of West Liberty, which is a bridge replacement, but a swap type project. We have a pre-construction meeting soon on the North Islip Bridge, but we're still thinking middle of August for the bridge project to start. And the grading project on Iron City Avenue north of F-70 near 130th, where we're building a new piece of road and eliminating a structure. Peterson Construction is supposed to be on site this morning, starting on that project. That's it for projects. The only thing I wanted to mention, FEMA, the way they are doing business now is changed from in recent years. One of the things that we have to do is frankly a lot of paperwork up front before they ever talk to us. This is paperwork we always did, but we kind of did it in the process. I think they're looking to see that you are capable of doing these projects correctly. So it's a lot of financial stuff and assurances that we sign and policies that we sign, and so some of that is out of my realm. We'll be working with administration here to get all that filled out and sent in. And then in my discussion with the state, odds are we'll be assigned some FEMA person in Texas that will deal with us via the telephone. The days of them coming out are mostly over, or it could be a consultant, because as we know in the news, there's a lot of disasters that are happening and they're pretty taxed. But also talking to the state office, you know, their staffing is down, and they said the FEMA people outnumber them about 10 to 1. So that's just kind of an update on where we're at on the public assistance side of that. I guess I'll mention one more. They had the state a number of years ago had a website where you entered all of this, and I finally got clarity on it because we entered all of our stuff there as we were directed at well, Nathan was at the kickoff meeting, as we were directed to do. And then a FEMA website appeared. Well, FEMA now has their own software, so you can go do it in theirs now too. But apparently from this point forward, we'll submit our papers in there.
To FEMA rather than through the state?
Yes, but the initial is through the state. It used to be all in that one piece of software. Now you reach a point, you stop and go forward. Questions, concerns?
Do you have anything else this morning, Keith?
No.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, item number 7 is items of planning and zoning administrator Eric Furness. Item number 7A is review and possible action to accept variances granted by the Muscatine County Board of Adjustment on Friday, July 12, 2019.
There were 3 variances, all 3 of them concerned or request to put an outbuilding in the front yard space of the lots. Board of Adjustment granted all three of them, found hardships and unique geographical limitations. Two were actually pretty close to each other on Zale Avenue up by Bluegrass. Just a couple small pole buildings that were gonna be in the front yard space because there was no allowable space in the rear. And then another one was a pole building, kind of up on the top of Isley's Hill. So 3 variances granted. I actually concur with all 3 of them in these cases. There were unique challenges to those 3 properties. I don't know if you want me to go through them one by one, but no real controversy there.
Yeah, I read through the meeting minutes and it seemed to be fairly non-controversial.
Yeah. So we just need, I guess,
Take a motion.
yeah, to accept them and not remand.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Santos, I have a second by Doug. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Item B is review denied variance application by the Board of Adjustment on Friday, July 12th, 2019.
For the record, I just want to say that should be review a denied appeal. That was not a variance. This was an appeal of a decision that I had issued on a farm exemption application. The farm exemption application was denied, and so the proper appeal course on any decision that I make is through the Board of Adjustment. That decision was appealed to the Board of Adjustment, and the Board of Adjustment affirmed my denial of it and denied the appeal. So the denial of the farm exemption in this case stands. It was based on lack of no agricultural income on the property that would entitle the owner to a farm exemption to build a structure. So there's no action required. There's none spelled out in code as far as what the Board of Supervisors are to do other than review these appeals. The applicant has the right to take it to court.
Right, I think that we've probably all been involved a little bit with this. And as I've spoken with the applicant and said, you know, your Board of Adjustment is the final say. And if you have still don't agree with that, your court, you can go to civil court on the matter. So, okay.
I just have a question on this. Would that decision have been different at a point in time that would come out of CRP and be row crop farm?
Obviously you're asking me to speculate a little bit here, and
And
but
it's
yes,
speculation.
hypothetically,
I have in my mind.
from what I understand about the property, what's been submitted, if that had been row cropped currently, then I would assume that I would not have denied the application, because active row crop on that property would have provided proof of agricultural activity, income producing activity.
Very good. That clarifies it for me.
And I think there were some questions on definition of a farm, right? Because you look at it on a parcel basis, correct?
Our ordinance specifies that a parcel, and I don't want to get too much into it because there may be litigation coming
Yeah.
on this one, but it's,
Very good.
Yep. Okay. Item C is discussion possible action to approve the purchase of 2 trucks for the Muscatine County County Building and Zoning Office.
So at budget time, we budgeted to replace our 2 trucks as we've done the last 4 years on a 2-year rotation. We've gotten what I feel is really great trade-in values. Our maintenance has dropped to next to nothing. So we budgeted to replace the 2 trucks that we have. In an attempt to try to follow our purchasing policy, I tried to get 3 bids. I had a build sheet from GM that I sent to 2 other dealers in this area, one in Iowa City and one in Davenport. And I had phone conversations, told them what I want, sent them the build sheets, followed up with an email, and I got no response from 2 other GMC truck dealers. So I'm just requesting your authorization to move forward to purchase the 2 vehicles at Krieger's. We've had very good luck. I think you can see the numbers are very, very good for a per year cost.
Yeah, I will definitely move to approve, but I think I would encourage that to, I mean, I'm very, very pleased with the numbers and seeing that. I mean, normally you're seeing some vehicles like this costing you know, the taxpayers, you know, $40,000 or $50,000.
Yeah.
You know, easily when you start looking at the size of these trucks, and I really think that I applaud you and your effort in regards to that, because, you know, we're budgeting, you know, $3,600, $4,100, and we're getting a new vehicle 2 years old. I cannot tell you that that's not something I would see in any budgets that I really see, so I would definitely move to approve that.
I wanna be clear, it'll probably be closer to the budget amount, because we're gonna, put the spray and bed
that's fine, but
liners
I'm-
in it to protect the beds from the 911 posts if we go out, put a rattle around,
Yeah,
but
but you.
we'll be within budget.
You're
through the
still
creepers
within
bid.
your $4,200 or your,
Yeah.
so-
It's just, it's kinda unheard of for roughly $2,000 a year you can operate a pickup.
and I know, yeah.
That has to do with government pricing, helps a lot, I guess.
Government pricing and the mileage.
And a strong resale market.
Yes.
Okay.
I need a second.
You got a motion?
I move to approve, yeah.
Motion by Santos,
I'll second.
second by Scott. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same? Motion carries.
Just on other, I just wanna throw it out there, we'll probably be back in front of you, here in a week or two, or, I guess the timeline's a little unknown. I would anticipate requesting, your authorization to submit a notice of interest to FEMA. We're still compiling, trying to figure out the number of heavily damaged structures. We've had almost no one contact our office saying, my cottage, my home is heavily damaged. So we're actually out going through, Brian sent me some addresses that he had looked at with some FEMA reps that they thought had major damage. We're starting the process of placarding to make sure people know that they can't start repair without a permit, floodplain and building permit. There's a tendency sometimes to not want to get those in some of these areas because you may have to elevate where they feel they don't have to. But because of the people that have been in front of you asking for assistance, we want to be able to put together a good sized mitigation project if the damage is out there. So there's a couple different projects that are available. One's a public, like an assistance for just abandoned dangerous buildings. These would be typically cabins on leased land, like on Corps of Engineer ground that people just walk away from. They're gonna become a nuisance, they're dangerous. So there's a grant that would pay for us to have those demolished and hauled away. That does not accommodate or accomplish buying out the property. That would remain Corps of Engineer ground. However, I had some conversations with the Corps recently. They're very interested after receiving pressure from FEMA and kind of cutting back in development on their ground, not renewing some of these leases. So I don't have a huge concern that the ones on the Corps ground will get rebuilt if we get them torn down. And then the other project would be an acquisition project where we would potentially purchase some properties. The grant would pay for demolition and disposal. Then Muscatine County becomes the owner, much like we did it after '08. It becomes green space. Those are deep restricted where nothing can happen on them. No development, no building. It can just be green space, which I think we can all agree is long-term a good idea in the floodplain.
Eric, that brings about I was approached by a local attorney this past weekend on I believe it's Senate Senate Bill 94 or 93 or something. It dealt with dilapidated and abandoned properties and recourse, and so there's a process that if the county wanted to deal with some of this, then we would have to adopt ordinances and stuff. Walter Conlon had mentioned it to me. Maybe you could reach out to Walter and talk to him a little bit. I would like advice on that to see if that's something that's I know we've had a couple of properties like that in the county that have been some kind of troublesome for us to deal with. And I would see if this is legislation that helps with that, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm familiar with, I think there was some proposed legislation that was trying to streamline much like a lot of cities have.
Like the 657, yeah.
The 657
Yeah,
stuff.
but it will help. I think it's something,
Yeah.
I would encourage you to look at. I think that was something that passed by,
Senator
Lofgren,
Lofgren,
I think, passed it.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was, so.
yeah, that's what he said.
Maybe a few phone calls you can look at and then see if there's any value for us to evaluate it in our.
Hopefully this legislation, hopefully you never have to use, but, I know we're dealing with a couple of situations where if we had some more, legal recourse, we could have helped the surrounding landowners a little bit more than we've been able to.
Certainly. Some of
Okay.
the ones that, when they make it onto our radar, too often, the financial burden to remove or clean up these things is more than what they're worth, and the people are just, so they kind of fester for years, and
Yeah.
if there's a process that facilitates us getting it done and somehow recouping the money, then we probably should take advantage of that.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, item number 8 is discussion of possible action to approve the minutes of the July 15, 2019 regular meeting. Motion by Scott, second by Doug. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
I just want one comment before, on the minutes for today, the review for the approvals, on what you sent us and what we got are backwards, A and B.
Oh, yeah, on 7A and
So I just wanna
7B.
make sure before you get the minutes out for that next week's approval.
Yeah. Okay, item number 9 is correspondence. Santos, did you have any?
I didn't have any correspondence.
I had nothing to note. Scott?
I had nothing to know.
Doug? Nancy, did you have anything for the board?
No.
Okay. Committee reports. Doug, did you?
July 17th was rural development at noon with Becky, and then we went to West Liberty and spent 5 days at the fair at our Veterans Memorial, which is new this year up there. Did that dedication. They opened the Heritage Hall and had a ribbon cutting for that project. And we had a little recognition for our fair manager who's retiring this year. The fair did turn out to be, we had really 2 good days. Friday, our tractor pulls did pretty good crowd. Saturday was Rodney Atkins concert, and we did a real good crowd for that night. We were almost out of parking spaces up there. We were thinking about opening the pit gates, find extra parking. Sunday, of course, is our trailer races, and people like destruction because it was a full house. We had the amphitheater, the bleachers, everything was filled up there. And they've announced that next year, they're gonna look for some more talent. Let's look to Rodney Atkins, because that was a big draw. And they're gonna bring back races for the fair. They're gonna kick that off on Wednesday, the beginning of the fair next year. I gotta tell you guys, I'm really impressed with the fair board that we have. These guys take their vacation to spend there for no pay to put that all together. They've worked their tails off. They're trying to be really accountable. And I ask everybody to support our fair.
Good.
Great.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
Scott?
On Monday the 15th, I had Magic, as well on the same day I had Conservation Board. The playground equipment that was newly installed out at Discovery is complete. They just have a little bit of concrete for it, I think, for a sidewalk yet. So there could be a challenge for handicap accessible until that's poured, but that could even be poured by now for all I know. So they're working forward on that. It's turned out just fantastic, and when it's all completed, they'll Kurt will advertise that situation is open, and it's just a really nice facility for all anyone that wants to.
Do you have any update on the restrooms up there? They're on order, right?
The restrooms are actually set there.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, and that's part of the concrete that needs to be
Okay.
poured. So, yeah, the restroom's set, and then, of course, there was one also set on the north side of the pond, the entrance going off of Cedar Street. There's one set there as well, a new one. So, yeah, they just got some concrete to pour, and that's gonna be a completed project. And then on Wednesday the 17th, I had Riverbend Transit and the Board of Health, and I also attended the fair a couple days, and pretty good amount of people that I saw. I wasn't there at the hottest points of the day, but I was there on Sunday and I talked to a ton of people there on Sunday. That's all I had.
On the 15th, we had the Magic Board meeting. And that's all I had. I too was at the fair, and I thought it was pretty well attended for the heat. I was there at the hottest time, so boy, the luck of the draw on that, I guess. But good crowds, and all the events seemed to be very well attended. So I was pleased to see everybody out there. Santos?
Good. On Tuesday, I'm on a newly formed housing committee that's kind of a spinoff of our We Lead in regards to trying to help develop the housing there in West Liberty. We're trying to look for, looking for ways of increasing the growth there, and part of it is looking for tax abatements, kind of learning from, West Liberty or Wilton and some other communities in regards to how they can continue to have growth. And so that was on Tuesday, and then on Thursday, we had our regular monthly meeting for our We Lead as well.
Okay.
Very proud to have you up there, I know that.
Yeah, I actually,
Came up quite often there.
thank you. I was requested to be the actual president on this housing committee just because I think some of the history and knowledge that I have in helping in that, so I said, oh, whatever I could do to help. So,
Okay. All right, the item number is 11 is to receive information from county employees. Are there any county employees that have anything for the board this morning? Seeing no one, items with the administration office. Item number 12A is to review the budget to actual FY19 beginning fund balances. Sherry?
Morning. You got the sheet in your packet that shows us what our July 1 budgeted fund balances were for our major operating funds, and then what our actual fund balances were. The biggest one is general basic. We ended up with $2,152,233 more than we budgeted for July 1. So that is a number of things. Some of it is jail revenue, federal inmate revenue, also interest on investment revenue was more than we expected, and departments not spending 100% of their budgets leaves money on the table. So there are a number of things that make up that number. In general supplemental, 420,000, mental health 70,000, roughly, rural services 41, secondary roads 1,275,000, and that has to do with timing of projects. It's hard, it's hard to pin down. I think Keith will tell you when we budget that fund balance, what checks are gonna be written before June 30 and what checks are gonna be written after June 30. In capital projects, we have $655,506 more than we budgeted. Same thing, we expected we'd have more checks written for the third floor courtroom, and those will be written in this fiscal year, so.
It'll just transfer over in a budget
We'll just transfer
amendment.
over. Yes, yes.
Okay.
And sometimes with budgets for capital projects especially, is we'll duplicate those amounts in the 1920 budget because we're never sure when the checks are gonna be written. So we talk about that at budget time with dollar amounts in the budget that may be more than the projects for 1920, but it's to finish up previous year. So we'll have to take a look at what that actually ended up with and possibly do a budget amendment. Then down below, we talk about transferring those dollars. What we've done historically is try to hold our general basic fund balance at 25-30% and set aside those other dollars for other uses instead of allowing the general basic expenses to sprawl and spend that money because we have it. So what I have down for consideration, our debt repayment fund balance is $2,120,000. We have on the 2016A refinancing an interest rate of 1.6%. our 2016B, which is the jail, 2.12 average interest rate on that. So what I'm suggesting is we move the money from this year into our building maintenance and repair fund, capital projects, to work on some of our projects instead of borrowing money, issuing more debt, that we spend the money we have. And I would imagine, I don't know what interest rates would do, but if we would borrow for projects out in the future, we're probably gonna pay more than 2.12 or 1.6% interest. So I think it makes more sense for us to spend our cash on the projects we have coming up. Any of this money, if we have it sitting in capital projects and we finish everything and don't need it, can be put into debt repayment or moved wherever the board would like to see it.
Amy, what kind of rates are you seeing on your CDs? I know your revenue's way up, but is it like 1.4 or 1.5, somewhere in there?
Oh, no, I'm getting 2.5.
Okay.
I'm getting some pretty good
And,
rates.
and kind of back when we were bonding this money, you were down under a point, weren't you? So if we just look at the margin there, I
We have to
think
assume.
your assessment's probably correct. If we have to bond for future capital, it's probably a good place to put those dollars so we don't have to do that and keep our debt service under control.
Sherry, have you talked to the building and maintenance and the capital group in regards to, could we utilize this funding still this year?
Say
You
it again.
mentioned that you wanted to transfer the money to the building maintenance and capital projects.
Right.
So that means that we would use those funds this year.
We can use those funds anytime they roll over. Each one is like a separate checkbook. So the money that's sitting in the building maintenance and repair fund, right now, I think we have $1,465,000 that's been there for a while, because the purpose for that is to set aside money, so when we need roof repairs or building projects, instead of having to wait and issue debt to pay for those projects, that we're setting aside that money. So that money can sit there for as long as we need it to. If at some point we would decide we didn't need it there, it could be transferred somewhere else.
Yeah, that brings about a couple of, this was kind of a history thing, a number of years back. We had a number of buildings, we needed to do a lot of capital improvements. We were really kind of lacking, and we had a whole group set. And then as a part of that planning process, the board had decided to create this capital maintenance fund with the whole notion, just like any business owner would do, is you'd have a depreciation fund where you'd store some of that. In government, we don't have tax help, but we have overages occasionally and put those dollars aside so that we don't have to go out and bond great deals of money, which we had to over the last 10 years to trying to get our buildings back in shape, because a new roof is absolutely foreseeable and we ought to be planning for that, so we shouldn't have to bond for it in the future. And that's kind of was the notion of that fund. And Sherry, were we ever able to, I think we talked about that with that fund, that we would be able to put a restriction on that fund, so future boards would have to do it through the public process. It still has to go through the budget process to spend those funds, correct? So you can't
Yes.
just sweep them and not have the public get input as to what the board's using those
It would
funds
have
for.
to be moved by resolution of the board of
Okay.
supervisors.
Okay.
So it would be a public process.
And I think that was another, that's been a concern is, we have that money set aside for capital, and that's what I put to all the voting public is, remember, that's why it was set there. And the board has worked hard to do that, and hopefully future boards won't view it as a candy store and use it for things it wasn't designed for.
Well, other than our 2016B debt, the other debt we owe is for repairs and maintenance of
Yeah.
buildings, repairing HVAC systems, putting roofs on buildings. And so the plan is, the hope is, once we get that debt paid down and then we have money to do this, that we're not, like I said, we're not issuing debt every time we need to put a roof on, so.
And in that, the A and B, I don't have my sheet in front of me, but the 2.1 million we have set aside for those bond repayments, now those we didn't issue debt service for those were those Buy America, so Are we, how many,
They
we've got
were.
like 3-year payments in the bank, so to speak? Is that about what we are at 2.1?
The payments for the jail runs 620,000 or so.
Okay,
So,
a little more than 3 years payments.
yes. And we also have the ability, now we refinanced the Build America bonds because we got a cheaper interest rate when we
Right.
did that in 2016. But we have had no problem funding that bond payment with federal inmate revenue, which was the plan. But we also jumped through the hoops that if for some reason that would change, we can levy taxes to cover that payment. But I don't, I mean, it's been discussed for 20 years since we've had federal prisoners that what if it goes away? It hasn't yet, so I think we're safe in assuming that we can pay off this jail expansion with federal inmate revenue. But if something would happen, we have some money set aside. And if we do that, if we carry that through to the end and don't pay this off early, this $2,120,000 can be moved into capital projects or building maintenance, wherever we
But
want it to go.
realistic out of the 2.1 million of, you know, budget dollars that we see this year, about 1.5 of that comes from jail, surplus jail revenue. Is that, am I about right on
Say
that?
that again.
Of the 2.1 that were over, you know, about
Yes.
1.5 came from
Yes.
additional revenue from the jail, and then we're taking some of that and we're sliding that back into a repayment fund, so if that ever diminished, we would have the cash to pay off and would not have to bond, is what the hope would be there.
Right,
Okay.
right.
All right, yeah.
And then down below, the capital projects, dollars, I was looking at 750 to put in just for future projects. We have a number of things, you know, coming up that if we can do those things and not have to borrow the money, we'll have to take a look at that at budget time, what we want those, you know, to be.
Well, I think we
sure
have
that-
some issues outstanding that this board's gonna have to deal with,
We do.
where having a capital fund will be a beneficial to us and the taxpayers.
And then
make some decisions.
200,000, put into our capital projects fund to possibly fund conservation projects. They have a lot going on,
And
have been moving fairly quickly with projects.
do we have a list of which projects? Did Kurt give us a list of what he had in mind and what that would fund, or was that just a number you kind
This
of?
is just a number I came up with. It will be sitting in our capital project, so if we choose to spend it on something else, we can. But we could
Well,
earmark it.
the past couple of years, we have allocated some money to conservation, and how are they doing on that? I mean, I've been impressed with the number of projects they're getting done, and they've really, Deep Lakes has come a long way, and they've really done a lot of development. I think a lot of people are really utilizing that. So do we have, maybe that's something we should I'll talk to Kurt about, maybe we should do a quick update and see, cause I don't know where their capital plans are, and you have a sense, Scott?
Well, the situation with this particular spring and the high water, you may not be seeing the results that you'd like to see as quickly as
Yeah, I understand.
the community would like to, simply because of the water situation. And I know that they're a little bit disappointed in regard to not being able to have these cabins built, but it is what it is as the water level's up. And of course, that seawater is slow to go back down. It's slow to come in, but it's slower to go down. And but in a sense on that issue, it might be a stroke of good fortune in regard to looking where that water level ended up at. And now when they shoot these elevation, they feel that they had an elevation that they were going to use for these cabins. But seeing what had happened this spring, they reevaluated what they can do in regard to getting more height out of it, and still keep the number one thing is the wheelchair accessibility, handicap accessibility to these, without really refiguring it. They can, without getting too much grade on the entrance to them, they can actually raise them another 6 inches. So this little high water event showed them what they could and couldn't do and where it was gonna be. And of course, 6 inches is a lot in that environment down there. So, yeah, it's been kind of a slow process and a learning curve, but I think it's gonna end up as a positive result here, because I don't think this year is the last of the high water events.
I think.
And
Yes.
the money's available now, and there's also a CAT grant to help with that project, but there was discussion the conservation board had with possibly putting in some camping sites at Deep Lakes Park and some other things that if we earmark some of this money to potentially help them with that, and if at any time we decide that's not what we wanna do with it, it can be used.
So
for
at this
projects.
point, your recommendation is to move it to another fund, we're not necessarily or are we moving it to, would we move it to conservation?
No, we're gonna keep it in our county capital projects fund, like we did the other monies, we didn't move it to conservation. That way, those projects are approved by the Board of Supervisors before that money is spent, so the county maintains control. We have no issue, no reason to believe we would ever have an issue with conservation or the conservation board, but that money stays in our, well, and the conservation reserve money is actually in our bank account also, but the board doesn't have the authorization over spending of that, so, and Kurt was perfectly fine with us putting the money in the county capital projects, and we assist them with those projects.
Yeah, in my mind, that is set up exactly correctly.
Yeah, so the question would be, if we would wanna earmark 200,000, or, and in all honesty, any of the money in capital projects, if at some point the board said we wanna spend 300,000 of this money on something for Deep Lakes Park, you can do that.
And refresh my memory, I think in the last money that we allocated to conservation like this, the addition of the shelters and the road, the path, and maybe connecting the road into Discovery on the land that we gave them,
The
the old
restroom.
barn area, that is all funded already. We've already allocated the funding to handle all of that for them.
We've allocated the funding, it hasn't all
They
been
haven't,
spent yet.
I know
but
they're
yes.
working on it, they've got their
Yes.
plan, they're working, but we've allocated the funding.
Yes,
So this would be additional funding.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And I think, I don't know how much more they have planned at Discovery Park, honestly, I don't know. I would be expecting most of this money would be used down at Deep Lakes Park.
Right, I would think so.
Could we get an update from Kurt? Could we request that to be on the agenda maybe?
Yep, I already have a note to do that.
Okay,
Okay, so I'll put together the resolutions and probably for next week to actually move this money.
yeah.
You guys are okay with that?
We are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 12B is anything else? Nancy, do you have anything else?
I do not.
Did you catch any fish?
We caught a lot of fish. It was, the crappies were,
Looks like you got a little sun too, you get a little tan.
it was a great vacation.
All right, but you came back.
I did.
Okay, we appreciate that. Okay, anything else come before the board? If not, the meeting is adjourned.